Awesome. So, before we get into this, let's just talk a little bit about kind of what we'll go through and what we're going to share. And the first thing is we're going to just talk about all of our individual unique stories, how we got to where we are now, and maybe there's something in there that'll resonate with you, or maybe you have some questions later, which we'll have time for a Q&A as well. Then after that, we're going to talk about some challenges, some opportunities, and the things we've learned, both from our wins and losses over the years. And then lastly, we'll end with some of the organizations and community efforts that exist specifically within game audio and music and sound, and how you can be a part of that. So let's go ahead and move into our first story and introduction. E-Man.
Oh, hi. Hi. Emmanuel Lagumbai. I go by E-Man for short. Audio designer. I do mostly sound design. I've done a little bit of music here and there recently, but not too much. My first intro to the industry was 2013. When I was a senior in college, I went to a little convention called Game Sound Con, which, again, we've mentioned Brian Schmidt earlier. He's the legend behind all of that stuff. Sent a nice email saying, hey, I'm still a student. How can I attend this convention? And he's like, here's a discount. It's like $100 or something like that. And my school covered it for me, and I got to go meet a bunch of folks. Second industry event ended up being GDC the following semester. And I graduated from the University of Laverne with a degree of in music. It's a small little college in California that's not really big, like industry-wise. It's kind of just you really go there to like do liberal arts for the most part. Their music programs, basically, you can join the choir and maybe learn guitar or piano. At the time, it's gotten a lot better now. They actually have like music production courses and whatnot, so I'm very happy for them from that front. Throughout the process, I do want to iterate, like the career and the journey in audio is never going to be like, oh, you just got a job in game audio, congratulations. Some people do get lucky to do that, but most folks don't, myself included in that. So I was working multiple jobs before I was doing full-time industry work. One being, Disneyland. I was in guest research, asking people how their day went and what zip code they were coming from and all that, so we can get data, which has then been replaced by the app, which now just asks all those questions for you. That department is no longer there. Worked in marching band. I taught the visual side of things. I saw a marching band jacket, so hey, love it. Was a Viz Tech for about 8 years at a high school close to me. Conducted a little orchestra. 2015, I say Senpai noticed me, I submitted a story for a player story for League of Legends, and Riot reached out of I think they said it was like 8,000 people had sent in stories. They picked like 11. And so they wanted to do a little thing about like an orchestra I was putting together for a convention that was like a fan convention for League of Legends. They called it Summoners Con back then. Also, rest in peace. It's no longer a thing. And so they documented that whole thing, or how I auditioned a bunch of musicians and conducted this ensemble, performed live. It was basically like I wouldn't even call it like a MAGFest-esque thing. It was very small in comparison. We had like 30 musicians to be in that orchestra that had saxophone players and whatnot. But they released a documentary in 2016 that featured that story, and a lot of the folks at Riot were like, who's that guy? And so some people started to ask me more questions about stuff, and I kept in touch with those folks. From 2017 to 19, did some indie projects, a bunch of freelancing. Actually, really a lot of that thanks to this guy over here, who got me my first gig in the industry 10 years ago now. Or maybe 11 years ago now? Jesus. Yeah, so I worked on some freelance stuff with him, including Devolver Digital. Those were some times.
Exciting.
And then I worked at Materia Collective for 4 months. Great organization for stuff to do music rights and whatnot. I did A&R for them for a little bit. I say 4 months because Riot ended up picking me up not long after I joined their team, unfortunately. So I was with Riot for about 4 years. Did an entry-level audio coordinator job, which is basically logistics and whatnot. Then did sound design for a handful of other stuff. Got laid off in 2024 and got picked up pretty much immediately by ArenaNet to do some contract work for them. And I've been with them for the last, almost 2 years now. It'll be 2 years in March. And yeah, that's me in a not so short nutshell.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mason Lieberman. I've been playing cello since I was 5 years old. I would have started earlier, but I didn't know the word cello, and so I told my parents that I wanted a broom. This is a true story. And it took me 2 years to develop the vocabulary to articulate what it was that I meant. I went to like a kids' petting zoo for orchestras kind of thing, like a Peter and the Wolf type of concert. And famously, when they introduced the cello section, in the middle of the concert, I stood up in my chair and screamed, "That's a broom!" And the rest was history. I have severe ADHD and hyperfocus when it comes to the things that I like, and cello was the first thing I ever liked other than video games. I made my soloist debut at Lincoln Center in 2005 when I was like 12 years old.
Slacker.
So yeah,
come on,
so
man.
I was paying my taxes from like before I had like facial hair, and I basically worked as a cello soloist my entire young teenage life. Like I was performing with orchestras and traveling and like doing the whole thing. And that was really the beginning of my music career. Before I was in high school, I was already working, quote, in music as a cello soloist. My first composition to ever get published was in 2011 after I graduated high school and I started college. I was going to like a classical program, didn't have any video game music or media score stuff, but the composition professor was super, super forward about like, enter into competitions, try and submit your music places, like just get in front of people, don't be afraid to publish something, try and release something. It's important for you at this point. And so a year into college, I had my first ever public performance of one of my works. It was a piece of music called A Texan in Japan. I grew up in Texas. I went to Japan as a kid because I have family. It's a whole thing. And it got performed with, I shit you not, because this is still the coolest sentence I will ever be able to say, aerial choreography. I still don't totally know what that means because I wasn't there, but I think it was like trapeze artists.
That's
That's
rad.
heckin' sick.
So that was the very first thing that I ever had put out. About the same time, I did my first video game score for Bounce the Block, sorry. It is a definitely defunct iPhone game that was just a square that you pressed a button and you bounced the block. Riveting gameplay. A year later, I had my feature film debut. I worked as a composer on Joe Lansdale's Christmas with the Dead. It was a terrible B movie from the guy who wrote Bubba Hotep, if any of you know Bubba Hotep. So I was like 18 years old, and we had like an orchestra in Tasmania. And to this day, I don't know why anyone let me do this. I was not qualified to do any of this. From there, I ended up transferring to go to a bigger school. I went out to Berklee College of Music, where I ended up like studying media score and video game music. And I ended up getting my first opportunity that kind of led into my modern career, where I got to do a performance with Jeff Williams and Casey Lee Williams, who's performing at MAGFest this year. Shout out, Casey. Woo! She's in the room, so we can be louder than that. Let's go, Casey. Woo! Performing the music of Ruby at RTX 2014. And because those performances went really well and we kind of did acoustic arrangements on the spot in the hotel for them, that led to me getting to work on acoustic arrangements on the show. That led to me assisting Jeff, and it eventually led to me getting to write a little bit of music for the show. And that was my first like linear media composing credit right around when I was graduating from college. From there, 2016, I made my debut as a freelance composer, where mostly I worked on anime. Because of the Ruby credit, it was a very J-Rocky kind of show, and most of the composers who were working on that show were still working on that show. I was one of the few people who was a part of it and then wasn't a part of it, after like season 3 or whatever. I started booking a lot of work in Japan, working on like the Beyblade franchise and Pokemon and like 50 animes, like franchises, just tons and tons of stuff. From there, in 2018, I went to my first con, MAGFest. Woo! I ended up getting a master's degree from that same school where I started from.
From MAGFest.
From
From
MAGFest.
MAGFest, yeah. It's a new program.
And I got my first job in-house at a game studio, which I got while I was attending GDC. I ended up having interviews there, and after a couple of months of interviews, they made me an offer over summer, where I joined them as a senior audio coordinator, which anyone who knows, that's not a real job title. You can't be senior and a coordinator. Fun fact, it was a translation error in my job title, which very promptly got revised to senior audio supervisor when they realized that that was not how those words work, and eventually audio and music director, working at Tencent. Last year, I left Tencent to become the music and audio director at a company called Interleave, where I've been working on all kinds of stuff. We most recently launched the soundtrack and a lot of the audio for The Outer Worlds 2. And now I'm here for you.
We're wondering, John, would you like to go next? And I apologize, I don't have John's slide up here, but if you wouldn't mind.
I worked
talking
so
a little
hard
bit.
on it, too. No, it's okay. Let's see.
We
here.
have it on our phone, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone here can
enjoy
look
it,
at
it's
it, but
great.
no one else can. Hi, my name is John Robert Matz, JohnRobertMatz, because I'm not on the board. I thought I'd just say it out loud. But yeah, I have been making music from a very young age. My parents were both amateur musicians. My mom was a soprano. My dad was a guitar player, trumpet player, and they both did church music. So I got kind of roped into that when I was a kid. I did band and orchestra and choir growing up. I was homeschooled, but I had a really great homeschool music program that I was associated with, and that was a lot of fun. So I decided, and because I had a really wonderful band director, that I wanted to be a music education major when I went to college. And we were poor, so I went to community college first for 2 years, and found a good school with a really good music program. Again, really great teachers. Transferred from that school to Elmhurst College, graduated over there with a music education degree. Along the way, I was writing random pieces back when I was in high school for band, arranging things for band. I was part of a youth orchestra where they wound up eventually drafting me to write music for shows. We'd do Christmas shows, and I was scoring. There would be radio drama where I was scoring incidental music, where I was weaving Christmas tunes into this incidental private eye detective music for this radio drama, part of our Christmas shows and other things like that. And also my sister was getting into making films with her friends, and so I started scoring short films that she and her friends would make. She went to go to school eventually for film, and I did a lot of short films for her friends and colleagues in school. And so I was doing a lot of stuff like that. Wound up eventually I graduated college in 2009. And as a music ed major, I hit the ground in a not great way, and here we go. Here's the downer of the thing. The very week that I got out of college, that I graduated college, my father passed away, and I did not have the opportunity to do a ton of looking for jobs, because you're in funeral land, and this is a very unexpected thing. It was one of these things where it just suddenly not good, from fine to not good, and as a result, I wound up teaching part-time. I got a wonderful position at a high school teaching classical voice under along with one of my professors in college who also taught classical voice there. And it was a wonderful program, wonderful kids, and I had a great time, but it's a part-time job, which meant after we had played multiple pieces that I'd written in college, and I had had a lot of time to think about how much I enjoyed writing music. Well, now I have a part-time job. I'm going to have to take a year before I can try to apply for more teaching positions anywhere more substantial. And in that time, I wound up picking up a little game called Artemis, the Spaceship Bridge Simulator. I had always enjoyed playing games, always played PC games growing up, and this game came along, which was basically, and sometimes I think it might be played here, actually. It has been for several years, but it's basically a multiplayer starship simulator. With multiple bridge stations, multiple computers, and the developer, Tom Robertson, had been working on it for quite a while, released a free demo, and I realized when I played the demo that there was no music. So I had a terrible idea to take advantage of a little program that he had built where you would film you and your friends playing the demo and post it to YouTube, send him a link, and then he'd give you a free copy of the game. And I thought, well, what if I film me and my cousins playing the demo and then write music for the video and send that to him and say, hey, by the way, if you like the music you heard, I wrote that.
Scandalous.
And it worked. And I got that job. From there, I wound up getting a chance to audition for a game called Gunpoint, which was very early indie darling back in 2013. Kind of a stealth electronic puzzle game. I wound up getting that gig along with two of my friends, Francesca Cerda and the wonderful Ryan Ike. And the three of us scored that game. And that got nominated for a BAFTA for Best British Game. And from there, I wound up going to my first PAX, met some more wonderful people, including Gordon McGlattery of A Shell in the Pit, became really good friends with him. Parlayed that in going to GDC for the first time. At some point along the way, Game Sound Con, met some of these characters, and wound up making just a lot of friends. They always tell you that you need to like network with people. You go to these things, you network with people, and like it's true. But ideally, you're meeting cool people and becoming friends.
Your network are your friends.
Your
It's
network is your
community.
friends. Yeah, it's never this exchange thing. It's like you meet a cool person, you learn about them, you become friends with them, and like at some point down the line, almost every gig I've ever gotten has come from a friend who looks at the job that has been put in front of them and says, "This is not for me, but I know someone else who is the right fit for this." We can't be everywhere all at once. And frequently, we know who is the right person better than... Well, speak for yourself. Yes.
for yourself.
Speak for yourself, says the man who's everywhere all at once. Anyway. But yeah. So that actually brings me to my next thing, a game I worked on called Fossil Echo, which I got because multiple people, the Hyperduck Studios guys and Ben Prunty and like one or two other people, all suggested me for this game independently. And so the developer Phil Crefo came to me, and I scored that, and that won a bunch of awards for audio. I don't think anyone actually played it outside of the people we submitted for awards for. But that developer went on to go make Chia, which won a Game Award and won a BAFTA and a bunch of other stuff in 2023. So like. It's been a fun ride so far. But yeah, those contacts let me also do things like Fossil Echo, For the King 2, games like Mythgard, Ambition, Dominion, and Power, a bunch of other things which would all be on my nice slide that isn't on the board. But yeah, and now I'm here, before all of you today, talking about writing music for games and occasionally also playing the instruments that I grew up playing, singing and playing and things like that. And speaking of things like, we can talk about it now, like Outer Wilds, like I got to play and sing on that, and it's fun. And that's because I know this character.
Outer Worlds.
Outer Worlds, I said it wrong, Outer Worlds 2 to be precise. I did the thing.
You did
I didn't. I know him too, but I did the thing. Back in...
If anyone asks, he worked on Outer Wilds.
That's not... I did it. I'm sorry.
Andrew right now.
Stop!
I didn't know
Don't tell him. Anyway. Sorry. Who amongst us, when those games came out, like the first Outer Worlds and Outer Wilds came out, like a month apart? Just incredible. Anyway, but that's it for me. I've talked enough. Thank you for having me. Let's pass it to the host over here. Sir, would you introduce yourself?
No, he actually won't.
So I think here we'll go to a video here.
Yeah.
This is Tara as well, telling her story. Hopefully audio should work. Guess we'll find out.
Cool.
Nope.
Audio did not...
Turn the volume all the way up and mic the computer.
Do it. Trust me.
Wait, what?
I'm an audio tech person. You need help?
Possibly.
Is the setting set to the HDMI?
Yeah, I think the setting on your computer is probably not set to
Do
H.
you have an audio jack on the mixer or for...
There is.
Oh,
There is an
there
audio
it is.
jack. You're not.
Oh, maybe
Oh,
did.
I see. The aux cable is to
Yeah.
your left, Cole.
Oh, wait.
We got it.
It's coming through. Okay.
How many professional audio people does it take to do this?
Right.
This was part of the journey. Just
Right here. Plug that in. 'Cause
I think we were already getting it.
it's coming through the projector.
Oh, I see.
It's the
I
projector
don't.
speaker.
Oh, okay.
not
Let me try
the-
this guy, and then
I do.
go back to this,
Well,
and
we
then.
want to hire an audio engineer.
Right?
All right, now let's see.
Tara Catallo. It's kind of crazy.
I think you have to raise the volume on the.
Hello everyone, my name is Tara Catallo. I go by Tara C Music on YouTube and socials, and I'm a musician, composer, arranger, game developer, etc. I more recently got into game audio, but for the last
We got there. All right, go
Hello
Tara.
everyone, my name is Tara Catallo. I go by Tara C Music on YouTube and socials, and I'm a musician, composer, arranger, game developer, etc. I more recently got into game audio, but for the last 6 years or so, I have been contributing session recordings for video games. Believe it or not, my very first gig was actually for the Lord of the Rings Online, which is kind of crazy. I was lucky enough to have connected with the composer several months before their update number 27, which was the Great Wedding update, and I contributed both session vocals and violin for the update. I've gotten a few gigs like this over the years, but I didn't get into game development until 2022, which was with Impact Gameworks' indie game Flowstone Saga. Now, this game was a joint effort between two Andrews. We have Andrew Aversa and Andrew Lewers, and of course we had a bunch of other contractors helping out in different disciplines. So I was contracted by Andrew Aversa to do quality assurance for the demo and for the game. I also did a couple of sound effects and created and implemented some seamless music loops for the game. Funny enough, this experience actually helped me secure a job at Unbroken Studios as a quality assurance analyst nearly 3 months later. So I actually specialized in audio testing for Harry Potter Quidditch Champions, and there's also a studio-led mentorship program that I took part in, so I was able to be mentored by the lead audio designer, who is Nathan Madsen. So the game shipped on September 3rd, 2024. Fast forward to February 2025, and I get word that the entire QA team is going to be laid off, as well as a couple other really great developers. So it's very unfortunate, and this was actually layoff round 2. It's been almost a year now. I still have not found another full-time job in game dev or even another market. However, I am doing a lot of freelancing as a music composer, sound designer, etc. for indie games. So I'm just continuing to build my skills and build my network to hopefully find something full-time, preferably in audio, later on in the future.
Thank you, Tara.
Again, genuinely such a bummer that Tara can't be here with us. We were all really excited to have her on the panel. MAGFest, please pick your panels earlier next time.
All right. Now, real quick, I'd like to get to some of our questions. I have a little bit of my journey just because I think maybe there's a couple different interesting things I could share here. But I'll go real quick so we can get to the good stuff. So my name's Cole Hicks. I'm a composer, songwriter, and a music producer. I've been working in the game industry for about 15 years. I first went to Indiana University. That's where I'm from, Indiana. Let's go Hoosiers, yeah, tomorrow? All right. And then studied at Musicians Institute a little after. While I was in school, I started a little bit more doing commercials and television music. I loved video games, but there's not like a how to do music for games thing. It's like there's no path really just set out for you. But I know, and that's why I have a Zelda ring, it's like there's certain things like the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask that meant a lot to me as a kid. And I wanted to know, it's like, how could I do something like that? So eventually, go to my first GDC, which is the Game Developers Conference. I found out about the Game Audio Network Guild, met a whole bunch of colleagues and friends, many of which are up here. And then I had my first big solo project after doing a number of different things with Hidden Variable Studios, which is an indie game studio in Los Angeles, still around. We did a mobile game called Bag It, which is like groceries and Tetris, and it's like don't squash the eggs with the milk carton and all that. It's actually pretty fun. And I did that, had a great time, learned a whole bunch, and then started doing actually quite a bit of work as a guitarist, doing session guitar work for a lot of different composers across different projects. Probably my biggest project prior to joining Riot was a game called Kenshi. which is an indie game that I was fortunate to do audio and music for. And I think kind of like John, I had a pretty interesting story where I found out a little bit about this game and thought it looked fantastic. It was only by one developer at the time. His name was Chris. And I saw a little bit of what he was doing and took a video and then put some music to some different gameplay. And I'm like, I think this is kind of my vision. This could work pretty well. What do you think? Is there an opportunity for us to work together? And he agreed. And a couple years of working together on that, end up releasing, doing pretty well. After that, I had an opportunity bouncing around a couple different studios. I worked freelance for a really long time, but most recently I was in-house at Riot Games as a composer. I was the lead composer on League of Legends and Teamfight Tactics. Worked there for 7 years, had a wonderful time, learned a lot, worked on some really cool things. And then at the end of 23, left and work independently now. So, with that out of the way, let's get to some fun questions for our panelists. So let's talk a little bit about some challenges, some opportunities, some learnings, all these different things. Let's talk first and foremost about maybe what is most relevant currently for those who might want to get into the industry, the job market. It's ever-changing, and currently it is in an interesting place. So let's talk a little bit about what does the job market look like?
I think most people would say there's at least 30 or 40 jobs for every single composer, so just go out, you'll be fine.
Right, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's
sure.
And that's the panel, Gal. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, sorry, it's 30, 40 composers for every job. That was,
I was
I
making a
know.
dumb
I
joke.
was
40,000 composers.
sorry. If you had a piece of
Yeah.
paper, I would turn it upside down at this point and make the joke. It's not that funny. Never mind.
So I will say I'm also a educator. I'm a member of faculty at both University of Southern California and Berklee College of Music. So even though nowadays I'm like a music and audio director, I'm primarily in a hiring capacity, I also have a lot of visibility into what my students are experiencing, what people at the entry level are experiencing. And it's really, really tough out there. There's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of fear, and a lot of people who don't really know where they're going to find their next opportunity. I want to be clear, despite that, there are opportunities. They are harder to find than they should be. It is more likely nowadays that you will be competing against people with seniority and experience than perhaps you should be. But there are a lot of opportunities out there. There's a lot of work that needs to happen, and what we are generally experiencing in the game industry could be described more as a constriction on the pipeline, not necessarily a reduction in the output. So you're seeing more teams are having to put out the same amount of work with fewer people doing that work. So people are just having to work harder and faster and be more efficient. If you are someone who can operate in that type of environment, there is still work to be done in game audio. There's still a lot going on.
Yeah. Looking at like the way the industry has gone, I've been let's put it this way. It's been a very interesting time. I'm sure a lot of you that are interested in getting into this, who have already been in this, have seen a lot of news articles going around, a lot of journalists and developers talking about how things are. They are not great. I had in the year 2023 to 2024, I had 5 projects get canceled. I basically have like 4 or 5 hours of music that I've written for multiple things that will never be heard. They're just there. Eventually my NDA will run out and I can see about getting those back and maybe releasing something out of it just for my own private use, but it's just, there's been some really dicey stuff. A lot of things have shut down. I will say this though, while it is probably harder than ever to kind of break in, I hate that term, but to break in, it is not, on the other hand, it is probably easier than ever to find something to create for. If you are a student, find your game dev colleagues, your game development student colleagues, work on stuff with them. There are so many people, tools have never been easier to start making games, and those games are going to need music or sound or audio of various stripes, and this is probably the easiest it's ever been to find something like that. Now, will that project strike it big and make, buku bucks, as it were, or whatever we say? Probably no, but maybe. And it will definitely give you more experience, and that can go on your resume, that can go in a soundtrack release, that can build things for the future. It's a lot harder, though. Like, you need to scramble more, you need to pull your, on your contacts, you need to make new contacts. It's been an interesting time. I don't know. But there is hope. Like I said, if you look at the output of games, like, they've been tremendous. But we're also, like, losing a lot of stuff. So be careful.
On that note, I was curious, E-Man, if maybe you could talk a little bit about how there are challenges and now opportunities with everything being so remote. Also, it's a very global development as well. Maybe just touching on that a little bit, on just the pros, cons, some of the new things.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. ArenaNet's full remote, or they're completely okay with people being remote. I live in Southern California. They're based in Seattle. We have people in Oregon, and we had some people in North Carolina. Somebody working in Europe every once in a while. It's got that aspect that allows it to function in that kind of context. So when you have that kind of team that's willing to do a full remote capacity, you get that opportunity to do it. I will also caveat that is not very common. A lot of the upper echelon of AAA would, require people to be in office or hybrid of some sort. That is another challenge for sure. Location does matter to some studios still. I'm not 100% sure why. I have my theories and thoughts, but probably better in private than in public. But there's some aspect of that will allow that, I would say.
One question about that, actually. Though, I think that applies more on the sound, on the audio side rather than the music side, because most of the time, composers, unless they're for an ongoing project, are not in-house.
That's correct. Yeah, I think there's only really 2 studios now that I can think off the top of my head that have in-house composers.
Yeah. Not a ton.
And both
For
with Beat,
North
right?
America, I will
That's true.
qualify. So in-house music teams are still relatively common in Japan, increasingly less so. I do a lot of work overseas primarily, and so Chinese studios, Japanese studios, Korean studios often have in-house music teams still. In large AAA Western ones, you're really more limited to places like Riot, Blizzard, etc.
Yeah, the et cetera. I
degree
really
of
can't think of
EA.
anyone else.
It's like Bungie as well, but Bungie has been downscaling too, right? So yeah,
I don't think Bungie even has any composers in-house anymore.
I don't think so. They did,
Yeah.
they don't anymore.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, I want to talk about some opportunities here. And we also have a video from Tara, which I'll play here in a minute as well. But something we had been discussing a little bit, and John, you'd kind of touched on it as well, is while it is difficult in many ways to, perhaps find that first job or start working, it is easier than ever to start creating something. Can we maybe talk a little bit about how creating your own projects or working from some of these things that you think are maybe a little bit smaller, how they can lead to something bigger or better?
Well, working on obviously I kind of treat every project as an opportunity to improve, be it my workflow or my production level or things like that. So if I'm working on obviously if you can, I guess sorry, are we talking about creating our own project for our own art to be attached to, or finding small projects and building things on top of that?
Yeah, either one. Yeah, whatever would be applicable.
Cool. Yeah. I feel like my whole career has been largely small projects. One of the big things I've been able to do, as I mentioned earlier, I taught high school music for a long time, part-time, and that covered some of the bills that let me take some risks that I might not have otherwise been able to do, which is to work on small projects that don't have big budgets, but then to work on situations where I could take a rev share deal on the back end. And it's a gamble when you do that kind of thing. But and sometimes it pays off spectacularly. Gunpoint paid off beautifully for probably less than 5 minutes of music in the final game that was mine. I made way more than I've ever made, if you want to think of it as a per minute rate, on that one project, because it was a rev share deal. Some stuff works out really, really well, but it gives you a chance to work with, say, a smaller developer that doesn't have a budget, but you believe in the project and you can put the energy and the effort into making the best possible thing. Also, if you want to spin it this way, it lets you, like, you are hitching your car, your star to them in a way that makes you invested. You're going to do a good job. They're going to feel better about the job that you're doing because you're invested like that. And when you're done, you have something that you can feel proud about promoting, and also know that if it sells to people, you're going to make something as well, which makes it easier to devote that time. It is a bigger risk, though, but it means that you can work on something that is small, that you feel passionately about, and at least feel like there's a good chance that you can justify the time you spend working on it, justify the effort you spend working on it. And when you do that and you put the time in and you have something like that, even if it doesn't sell amazingly well, you have something you're proud of that sounds good, that can go in your portfolio, and you can use that as a building block to something even better in the future. How's that feel?
Yeah, that's great.
Cool.
Yep. And on that note, I'd actually like to play a video from Tara here, who's going to talk a little bit about social media and new ways to connect, because she has quite a bit of experience in that.
Hi again. I want to talk about the social media and also new ways to connect, kind of rolled into one. As someone who has been on YouTube for over 15 years now, so I have 15 years worth of content, and I've been on social media for well over a decade now, trying to build my community and things like that. There's been a couple of opportunities that have come my way from social media and from doing outreach, but also going to events such as MAGFest. The very first game gig that I actually got from, the Lord of the Rings online composer, I actually went to a Mario Masters Coliseum. It was a charity event back in 2019 that was local to the area. I got invited by people who are also part of Zeldathon. So it was Jiggy and Super MC Gamer. They're like, yeah, just swing by. It'd be fun to have you since you're local. So I went there on a whim, brought my violin, played a little bit with Jackson Perotti, and I think a couple other people there. The composer for Lord of the Rings Online actually watched the stream. He watches it every year. He noticed me. He's like, oh, she's new. Haven't seen her before. Let me look her up. Found my YouTube. He ended up becoming a patron of mine on Patreon. And then months later, he actually messaged me on Discord and wanted to get me on for the Update 27 gig. So all of that was just because I, on a whim, impromptu, just went to this charity event for one day, only a few hours for that entire event. And he saw me, and that's kind of what sparked that. The other one is going to MAGFest. I actually performed at MAGFest at the Belvedere. I believe it was 2021 or 2022. I have to double check. 3 years later, I got an email from the Rabbit and Steel solo developer saying that he was working on a DLC for the game, and he was there at my set for MAGFest, and he liked my music so much, he knew he wanted to hire me at some point for his game. And so again, 3 years in the making, right? 3 years later, he emails me, and I was able to sing vocals for one of his tracks for upcoming DLC, which should be releasing at the end of this month, hopefully. Again, just a testament of this stuff takes time. And, obviously you have no idea if these gigs are going to come, because sometimes it takes months or even years before you hear about this. But I think it is very important to try to go to as many events as you can. Just make yourself known, talk to people, don't just pitch and be like, oh, do you need this? Do you need that? I want to, do violin for you, or I want to compose for you. Try to develop actual relationships with them, or just showcase your skills. Kind of what I did for both the charity stream and for MAGFest, right? I was performing for both of those, and that was enough to get some gigs from. The other thing is social media. So I've gotten a couple of gigs from social media. I got the gig playing some violin for Quartet, which is an indie game composed by Tyler Meyer. I actually did a cold outreach to him, I think on Twitter/X, and he's like, you know what? Actually, I think I could use violin in some of these tracks. And so that's kind of how that happened. The other one is Blue Sky. I saw a post from someone on Blue Sky looking for a music composer. I messaged him on Blue Sky. I sent some of my stuff that I've done in the past, chatted with him a bit, and he ended up going with me and hiring me to do music for his game, which is called Kinfolk. And that's still in progress. I'm still composing for it. Flowstone Saga, which I did QA testing for, did a little bit of audio work, and also recorded viola and vocals for. That all started from a DM that I sent to Andrew Aversa because he was part of the OC Remix community. So again, there's a lot of different platforms that you could potentially get gigs from. So I do think it's important to use social media the best you can, showcase your skills on there, try to, develop some rapport with other people and other developers. It's hard when you do cold outreach. Sometimes it works, right? Like I got the quartet credit because I did cold outreach to Tyler, but I believe you'd be a lot more successful if you try to develop the relationship and, build rapport with those people first. And yeah, I guess the final takeaway is going to events such as MAGFest, PAX, doing charity events. You never know what could come your way months or years later just because you attended those things.
That was so, I was read to filth. Oh my God.
Cool. Thank you, Tara. And just for time and everything, I'd like to move forward just a little bit further, and we'll talk just real quick on one thing here, and then talk a little bit about organizations and open up for Q&A as well. So, Mason, could you talk a little bit? You have a ton of experience working with a lot of different people across a lot of different fields. What does it take to be a great collaborator? What are you looking for?
Be a cockroach. Just be around and don't let them kill you. What I am always looking for, more than anything else, genuinely, is kind of just attitude and like energy and like, I sometimes equate getting hired for like any job to, I have like a very dumb joke. It's like the Turing test. So it's a play on like the Turing test for all the computer nerds in the room. If you were hiring for like a rock music tour and you need a guitar player, and I have two options. One of them is the greatest guitarist who ever lived, and the other one, if this is like the bar that you need to pass to like get the gig, like greatest guitar player is up here. The other guy is right here. Who do you hire? The one who's not an asshole. Because the answer is both of the people I just described are good enough to do the job correctly the way that we need to do. And at that point, the question is, who do you want to be in a bus with for 17 hours a day? Who's going to help with teardown? Who's going to drive the bus? Who's going to like not get hangry if it's a long trip before the next gas station? Like, who do you want to be with for this period of your life? I've found that a lot of times, like, the hard skills of what we do, they're important, but you can learn them. You can develop a skill set. You can make this stuff happen. The thing that gets you the job is often the soft skills. It's people being like, you know what, I like this person. I want to spend time with them. I have faith in them. I trust them. And I know that if we do something, they're not going to drop the ball. It's going to be a good experience. It's going to be non-stressful. And at the end of the day, that trust is the thing that gets you the job. So that's what I would point towards.
Yeah, that's a great point. Trust being one of the biggest ones.
It's the most important. It is more important than anything else. Because at the end of the day, a good way to think of it, for the vast majority of us, none of us, even people who are in leadership or who own companies, most of us are not so fabulously wealthy and powerful as to be insulated from the consequences of our actions. And if you hire the wrong person and they damage your company or they damage your product or they damage the reputation, as a boss, that might be your head on the line because you vouched for that person. Which means every single time you hire someone, especially someone new, someone untested, you need to be really, really confident that they are going to withstand the pressure, that they're going to step up, that they are going to do good work, and that they are going to be as invested in it as you already are. So oftentimes what I'm looking for, especially when I'm looking at like junior talent, because like I hire interns, I hire assistants, I hire people for entry-level positions, and when I'm doing that, I'm generally go, well, I can teach this person to be a better musician. I can teach this person to be more competent at these technical tasks I need. I cannot make someone have a better attitude. I cannot convince someone to give a shit. I cannot convince them to not be off-putting when they are around our clients or around my family or anything else. And those are really important factors to consider, you know what I mean? So those are kind of the things that I would say I'm usually looking for.
And on that, I'd like to talk a little bit about community and organizations and things and places and everything where you can go and how you can be more involved if you are interested in this profession. So there's a whole bunch of them. These are just a few, and feel free to, of course, talk with us after. But we have the Game Audio Network Guild, the Society of Composers and Lyricists, a little bit more music-focused, has a lot of TV and film as well. I put up the Society for Game Cinematics. Maybe there's people here who aren't as much interested in the audio side of things, but are interested still in cinematics for dev. That's certainly something to look into. It's relatively new. I just found out about them as well, but great people. Academy of Scoring Arts, if you're just really curious about the composition side of things, great place to learn. IGDA has multiple chapters, and there's lots of local game dev groups as well. Events, can't recommend Game SoundCon enough. It is the place to go if you want to do any kind of music, sound, VO for games. It's where we all go to learn, to talk, and find out what's new and make new friends and new collaborators. The Game Developers Conference is a great one as well. This is my first, but MAGFest seems to be quite good too, talking from everybody's stories. PAX, and then AirCon, which was from Terra. I'm not super familiar with that, but I heard that's a great one as well.
It's super, super cool.
Yeah, it is an online-only thing. There are wonderful talks from tons of developers, tons of game audio folks. It's really neat. I've done it. I think I did one talk for it at one point. A lot of my colleagues have done stuff for it as well, and it's a great thing because you can just drop in and watch a stream and watch these things, and they're all archived, so you can go and sort of attend as soon as you get home from MAGFest if you want to. Really good time.
It's basically like free
Yeah.
Game SoundCon, right? Is that
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. So
And I will also say there's also good events around the world. So a lot of what we're describing right now, AirCon is technically hosted out of the UK, but there are great things that have great audio meetups all around the world. If you're in Japan, Otaru is like a really great regular meetup that tends to be a lot of game dev focused stuff. Going for events like Tokyo Game Show or Gamescom or SEDEC or Bit Summit or all these different things, composers and game audio people go to these and they form community, they make friends, they find professional connection, and you can do all of that same stuff as well. A lot of this stuff is about putting yourself out there at the end of the day.
And also, real quick, because some of these can be a little bit expensive, there are some scholarship programs that are available through different organizations as well. Game Audio Network Guild has one.
Game Audio Diversity Alliance is another
Yeah,
really great one.
Yep.
Alliance for Women Film Composers has one.
Well, with that said, we wanted to share stories. We want to talk about challenges, opportunities, but ultimately you may have some questions that are a little bit more specific, and we'd be happy to answer them. We'll be here after as well, but we have time now. If you would like, please come up to the mic, and we are happy to answer questions.
hello.
Hello.
Thanks for the talk. It was very nice. So I'll be brief, but just a bit of background. I'm a programmer at home. I used to make mods for a little-known indie game you may have heard of called Minecraft. I also love to compose. I went to I have my bachelor's.
people can see.
I have my bachelor's in music composition. I still do a little bit of that. The music school wasn't the best. It wasn't a bad music school, but it just didn't click with me. So, just like you said, Mason, having jobs outside of the industry is good. Like I work IT now, but because I work a full-time job and I go home, I just go home and I let my passions kind of rot. Like they're withering away a little bit. So, and I just want to find a way to just make things. So my question for you is just, what do you do if you just need to make something? Just need to create.
Can I jump on that one with a really short thing? A truism that I think about a lot is today is probably the least busy you're ever going to be again. Like, you are constantly going to grow in responsibility, whether that's family, work, You're going to continue to have reasons not to do something, and it's going to get harder and harder to argue with those reasons. If you want to do something, like whatever your justification is for why you're not doing it now, fuck that shit. Jump on it as soon as possible, because you will find ways, by that same token, to expand the reasons why you should be able to work on something now. Like, it feels silly to say brute force it, but like, I used to work at SimpliSafe. I've driven Uber. I've done jobs that were very, very non-industry where I didn't feel connected to my music whatsoever. And I still would just force myself to do this stuff because I knew where I wasn't where I wanted to be, and that's sometimes what it takes.
To give you like quick perspective on that, like a lot of us are working professionals in the industry doing the thing right now, right? When we get back, we have to do that work, but we have to take that time off to be here to do that, right? So like their challenges are different in that context where it's like, yeah, I'm doing the thing, but to do this, which is the thing I want to do, I got to sacrifice a little bit of the stuff that I'm getting to do now, right? So like he said, the challenges are going to continue to grow. Just take 5-10 minutes. Just say, I'm going to take this 10 minutes today, and all I'm going to do is write music or make some sounds or do whatever. And then start with that and see what happens. And then like that actually starts building your chops too.
Small doses can be fantastic. My wife, when she has to write something that she doesn't want to write, but she needs to, she'll say, just 15 minutes. I can find 15 minutes somewhere in my day and force myself to do that. And I've found that that is like a really great battle cry when you want to do something, but you don't feel like you can, or when you don't want to do something, but you have to do it. Just think in 15 minutes, just tiny chunk. It's not a huge thing. Don't think about everything that goes into it, just the next 15 minutes.
So, speaking of 15 minutes, let's move on here.
Yeah, right.
We got like 8.
Yeah.
So my question is, in terms of, there's obviously like, and you touched on this a little bit, but there's the game audio side and then also the composition side. Sort of how intertwined are they, and how different is the job market? And then a secondary question, if this time, is in terms of, one thing I noticed about all your stories is none of it involved like internships or like that type of traditional pathway. Is that something that's sort of viable for getting a job, or it's really just, you know, grinding out everything you can and eventually meeting someone?
So on the first thing, there's several questions here, but as far as composition and like other game audio disciplines, they're very connected. You know, as a composer, you should be ideally talking with the audio director, talking with the sound designers, or at least getting orders from the same person so you don't step on each other.
The audio director is the person who's usually hiring the composers.
Exactly.
And the sound designers. Sound designers often level up into audio directors, so those relationships may be where your jobs come from in a lot of cases.
Yeah, very, very connected. Then on the other, what were the other questions we had here? Oh yeah, internships. There are some places that do that sort of thing. There are also, if you're in the composition side of things, there are people that have assistants that they hire to help them, like doing everything from orchestration to literally getting coffee, and in the process, you're learning how production goes together and how this composer handles, putting together a project, running creating scores, going to recording sessions, etc., all that stuff. So like that is the equivalent roughly. So there are places that have that sort of thing, but also there are people like I got in entirely doing indie games, and I never had an internship, and I've never been anyone's assistant. So your results may vary, and there's a lot of different paths.
Yeah, and I'll just real quickly, I did have an internship and did some assistant work, but none of it really directly led to kind of where I'm at now. I did gain skills from those things, though, that eventually helped.
Cool.
Thanks for your question.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for the talk. I have a quick comment and a question. The comment is directed to Cole. Go Ducks.
Go Hoosiers.
And the question I had was just a little bit of backstory about myself, just a tiny bit. I've done this past year like 5 or 6 different game jams. Shout out RVA Game Jams. And attended my first Game Sound Con virtually a couple months back.
Cool.
And this is my first in-person con. And my question, Tara talked about it a little bit, but I want to open up the floor to you guys. How would you make the most out of this opportunity of MAGFest right now?
Make
Just
Yeah,
make
no,
friends.
that's it. Yeah, 100%.
So I was gonna say, E-Man and I met each other at MAGFest 8 years ago, and I mean, I'm not gonna like throw the money in front of things, but it's like we've hired E-Man for a lot of work, like in just the last few months alone, and like it's become a meaningful like working relationship side of things, and it comes from friendship at the end of the day. Like it always starts with that. Like E-Man is someone who's incredibly talented, and who I can trust when like the situation is tight and be like, all right, I need someone who will reduce the stress. I'm just pulling the pin, throwing E-Man in the hole. He's gonna blow it up. Like it's gonna be great.
Just make friends.
Make friends.
That's the
Yeah.
big thing.
Make friends.
And like this here, I mean, you've met us now. Keep in touch. Like I'm open to answer any questions and talk with anybody if they have questions. So reach out on social media, and you never know. Years from now, yeah, we could possibly be working together.
I will
Thank you.
only answer questions in iambic pentameter riddle. Howdy there.
Hi.
Great talk today. Thank you for sharing, all your experiences. I have a bit more of a specific skill-based question that's been on my mind recently. I have a decent background in sound design for linear media, and in my journey to build out my skill for game audio-specific skills, I was crazy enough to purchase the WISE certification exam with my own money and everything. And I've done all the modules and prep stuff. But now I'm beginning to, I guess, introspect a little and get a feel in terms of the, I guess, strength and relevancy that something like certification has within game audio or the game industry or whatever. So I'm curious if any of you have insight or experiences pertaining to what certification could or couldn't do for, a person.
Yeah, so actually, I have feelings about this because I personally did not do the WISE certification, though it is extremely valuable to do it because you get a lot of knowledge behind that. But a lot of my job ended up being on the job training, right? So at Riot, I came in as a coordinator, entry level, and I just focused primarily on sound design stuff. They were helping me learn their engine because like Mason was saying, it's a teachable skill.
Right.
It's helpful to do that stuff and to get those certifications just for your own knowledge, but it's more helpful for you to just get in there and get your hands inside of the actual content itself, if that makes sense. So there's opportunities, I know there's a bunch of demos that exist with Wise or Fmod and Unreal or Unity that have stuff that you could just patch in. Use that. Take that, learn from that and put your own sounds and stuff in there. That way you can actually get that going.
Thank
The
you.
education helps. The certification is not something that we really heavily consider in hiring capacity. It won't detract, but it may not add that much dramatically at the end of the day. The knowledge is more important and how you can showcase that.
I think we can take one more question maybe.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we have to pretty quick.
Okay, go.
But that said, anyone in line will be here, and I'm going to be after as well. So happy to answer questions after this.
Hello, my name is Akil. I also have a comment and a question. First, thank you all so much for this. This is very helpful. Second, go Hoosiers, actually.
Yes, indeed, go
Undefeated
Hoosiers.
for the entire season. Thank you. And then last, I do have a question that kind of goes back to the idea of doing competitions and then traveling for events like this, and that is money. So sometimes it's hard to keep that up consistently just because I don't make a lot of money from music. So do you have any ideas or suggestions for ways to get funding, whether grants or just having a ton of jobs, anything like that?
I was the latter.
Most of the time, you do not control how much money you make, you control how much money you spend. When I started my career, I was splitting a bedroom with my former partner in a slum, quite literally. We had rats and no heating.
Nice.
My partner worked in food service, so I got leftover food at the end of the day, and that was most of what I lived on. I didn't have a cell phone for the first year that I was in. I was in a car that was paid off at that point because I'd had it for 5 years at that point, and I'd bought it used. So my cost of living was super, super low, and that meant that I didn't need to make that much money to survive. And I didn't live nicely. I wasn't going to concerts or having fun, but like, you know,
I mean, we aren't having
I
fun now anyway,
survived,
so it's fine.
and it allowed me to invest in myself in the time it took to build up the skill set that is functionally unpaid time to get better at the thing that it allowed me to then be employable.
Yeah, doing game audio is like you can make a lot with no money at all, but it also very quickly scales and becomes expensive, as we know. Attending events is pricey. You start to figure out things like when I go to GDC, I sleep on the couch of a good friend of mine who I worked on a game with and who is my DM for my D&D game. Because it's too expensive to go to San Francisco. Like it's not, you know, and you want to save wherever you possibly can. So for me, like flying from Chicago to San Francisco and then going there, it's something you need to, like, you know, you got to plan and do what you can. Find a friend, you know, find multiple friends, fill a hotel room with people, do everything you can to bring the price down, things like that. Game Sound Con, which is a wonderful thing, we've talked about it a lot, has very good prices for people who are returning alumni. So that's another thing you can try to do. So once you go once, you know, apply for scholarships and stuff like that. Once you're in, it's cheaper too. So anyway, but yeah.
We're over on time, by the way, so I just want to say thank you all so much for
Thank
coming.
you very much.
We want to take a
Appreciate
photo
it.
with y'all real quick.
Other
Yeah, let's do a
questions, feel free
photo.
like to hit us up with. Right?
Take
Yeah,
the
if we
photo.
could get a photo of us.
Oh yeah.
I want it.
Wait, here. I'm on the end here. I'm on the end here.
Okay. Do that one. And then get everybody.
Yes.
Kind of.
How do we do this?
Close enough. Okay.
Terrifying.
All right,
right,
thank
we'll
you
be-
all. And we'll be out here so we can
We'll
chat
be
some
around
more.